Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience, and especially those of you online and from all over the world. Welcome to City Lights, and welcome to all of you wonderful people here. Everyone had a chance to eat yet? Good, good. So I can't remember the last time we had a talk story. I think it was when Uncle Al was alive. That must have been a long time ago, man. Ages. So this is wonderful. I'm so happy. My name is Peter Maravellis. I do the events here at City Lights. Tonight's event is being co-presented by the South of Market Community Action Network. And if you don't know about them, go online and find out about their good work. Before we start, though, I do want to say a couple little things, as is customary. I want to remind everyone, especially those of you online, we are beaming to you from the unceded ancestral homelands of the Ramatish Ohlone peoples. They were here before us. There were over a dozen dialects spoken along this peninsula. Wherever you may be, you find out what your indigenous folks are and pay some respect. So tonight we are celebrating a fantastic new book, Follower of the Seasons. And we are honored to have Oscar Peñaranda with us here tonight after many, many moons. This wonderful book, this wonderful project was sponsored in part through a grant from the San Francisco Arts Commission. And it's just a beautiful book. I don't know how many of you have already picked up a copy. It's in the back room here with food. So I'd say, grab it, buy a few for friends. Holidays are coming up. It's a great, great gift. So I know Oscar is, many of you, of course, know him. He's a great wordsmith. I mean, his prowess as a poet, as a fiction writer, of course, as an educator, great storyteller is well known. But, he's also a community builder. And a lot of what we're doing, many of us in this room actually, is community building. And this book is actually really is about that. So that's what it makes tonight especially auspicious. Oscar was also the founding member of the Filipino-American National Historic Society. He's also taught ethnic studies at San Francisco State. And just in terms of his prose here at City Lights, we have nothing but great respect. So this is quite an occasion for us. I would like to welcome now Angelica Cabande, who is with SOMCAN, and she's going to say a few words to open the evening. Welcome to City Lights.
Thank you, Peter. I was actually here when they did that talk story. It was my first time stepping into City Lights with Al. So hi, everyone. Again, my name is Angelica Cabande. I'm the director of SOMCAN, South of Market Community Action Network. Before I bring up our main poetic celebratory, I want to thank first City Lights, especially Peter for co-sponsoring this book launch, East Wind Books for printing this book, and of course, this project would have not been possible without the partnership and grant from the San Francisco Arts Commission. Salamat, thank you, SFAC. Really quick about SOMCAN, we were established in 2000 as a direct response to the gentrification and displacement of the Filipino community in Soma. We are a multi-strategy, multi-issue organization building the leadership, civic engagement, and advocacy of youth, parents, and seniors in the South of Market and now in San Francisco. SOMCAN has known Oscar for many years in his decade of work as a writer, poet, educator, and institution builder in the Filipino community, locally, nationally, and globally back in the Philippines. He actually just came back this year. We were really felt that it was really important for SOMCAN to partner with Manong Oscar to get this book out, because part of our work is making sure that our community, especially our youth, knows the history, right? Even the really painful history of what happened to the Manongs in the I Hotel, Grand Oriente, right? Delano, Stockton. So we really wanted to make sure that his story continues and is actually beyond just the Bay Area. So we're really excited that this talk story is happening. So yeah, with further ado, sorry. So it was last year, actually, when we talked with Manong Oscar, we decided to help with fundraising and win the Arts Commission, which we felt like he should have gotten that long time ago. I can't believe we just have it last year, right? So yeah, because it's like, with Al, with Oscar and other folks, it's really important that we lift up all of our community folks and the work that they do, all of the artists, right? So, after winning the grant, we were able to meet with him every week, and also Marge from the Philippines helping uh, in the Philippines get this book together, and it's really a beautiful book, and it's really makes sense to really have it here at City Lights as a book launch. So with that, I just want to thank all of you for being here and enjoy tonight. Please like and share Oscar's IG. If you don't know, he's on IG now and Facebook. Continue following him, because this is the first book launch, but he's actually going to be just like the followers of the season book. He's actually going to be doing that as well. He's going to do another book launch in the South of Market, care of Soma Filipinas. Thank you, Soma Filipinas. And then another one in the East Bay. So make sure you're on his IG so you could follow him. So with further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Oscar Peñaranda.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Angelica. And like she said, I'd just like to remind folks that this book really is was done by Marge Villa Esther, my co-editor in the Philippines, and Jerome Reyes. I just put the words in it. They did the book, but I put the words. And I would like to, I have my iPhone that tells me what I'm supposed to do. And then there's Peter made something here for me so that I won't have to worry. It's right here. Anyways, the program tonight, I would like to start with 2 or 3. I think Shirley Ancheta is not here tonight, so she's sick. A lot of folks are kind of sick, are recovering. And Joaquim Tuason Cruz is here, and also Jason Bayani. So I wanted to do a sort of a next generation, and then the next generation, and it's just like two or three generations before you. They will speak or recite their poems for about 2 or 3 minutes. So I'd like them to start before I start. Okay, Jason Bayani.
Wasn't sure what I was going to read, but no, it is really great in being able to support this reading. I got a chance to preview a bit of Oscar's book already, and it's really really a gift of his long view of his own personal history, and not only his own personal history, but our shared histories and all the bridges that we've crossed, and all the bridges where we've lost people. So. It's really an amazing piece of work from what I've read so far. I'm just going to do 2 short ones here. I'm waiting for the words to catch up to my heart, which is elliptical at the moment. There's an apology even I am expecting to bore out of my throat, but what for? What for? I am continuing to write in a font that displeasures me. Everything shifts so rapidly these days. My body, the environment, my body, the environment. Why not return to something as aggressively unspectacular as Arial? A font for all my first thoughts. Today, I typed the words someday again and deleted and retyped, deleted and retyped. Inside of the collapse, I am still holding on to narrative.
This is not sentiment, it is how I keep my family together. When I breathe in deep enough, I feel it. All the old anger waiting to become newer anger. Not having the words can feel like not having something to hit. I think I wrote that in another poem before. What is the equation that solves everything? Ideas are commodity, even the idea that ideas are commodity. I don't even know what I have to sell. I've spent my entire life living on a fault line. I know all that's been made is inherently broken. This is not me being dour. This is me writing a note that says, I miss you. I meant that the other way. But the one you're thinking, that works too. Let's try to see if I can get the fuzzy on the thing. Okay, how's that? Wait, it's buzzing. All right, we'll see how it goes. I don't want to go off mic too much, so. In Jerusalem, there is a break in the wall where DJ climbs up a dingy ladder so he can get to a gig he's booked in occupied territory. He's been caught by the police a few times already, but as he says, he won't stop. He's bringing music back to the place his family was removed from years ago. Every great act of resistance is built by smaller acts, and therein are smaller acts. Displacement is an excision from the body, one of the oldest violences. There is an assumption that a wall is built for protection, but a wall inflicts. It disrupts a people's belief in belonging to a land. The wall appears in endless forms. There are many ways to inure a people into seeing a home as something they are meant to lose. Sometimes what we are doing is rooting each other back into the earth to help each other back into our bodies. The 4/4 drum pattern that gave birth to dance music is sometimes called the heartbeat. The way it centers repetition makes it akin to mantra or prayer. To be together is to remember we exist. To be within is to find the will. We will give life to each other this way. We will return each other to ourselves. We will remember those two who brought bread or flowers or song. The world will always bend to this. I must believe it is true. To us, they will listen.
Thank you, Jason. Kearney Street Workshop, by the way, same time, the International Hotel. We have parallel history. So please, if you want to find out more about it, talk to one of us, talk to anybody. But it is a story that has been together, but not talked about enough for the community. All right. I'd like to also ask my friend, Joaquim Tuason Cruz, who has been, I guess, idolizing this building or for ever since he can remember. You know? Here he is.
Thank you, Professor Oscar. Before I get started with my poems, I would like to give a little dedication to City Lights. Hello, everyone. My name is Joaquim, a student at Foothill College, and I see some students from the college right at the back. It's an honor to be performing poetry here at City Lights Bookstore on its 70th anniversary, the center where the Beat Generation writers such as Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac hang out with founder poet Lawrence Ferlinghetti, rest in peace. This place with a face has served as my inspiration for writing poetry. That's why they call it a literary meeting place since 1953. I am deeply grateful for performing here at just 19 years old. Thank you to Professor Oscar and the City Lights Foundation for inviting me. And now I will now begin forming my poems. A blessing of bliss. The sky is light azure with the sun shining in a bliss of brightness. As if the angel with the looks of a maiden Madonna has touched down on earth from the heavens. It was at that moment I knew a blessing would come upon me, a blessing of bliss. The maiden Madonna with unknown name, looks that young man would die for and desire. Exotic, erotic, and divine. Skin of pale pink and white. Fresh as newborn flesh on God's great earth. Black hair like the abyss of night and space. Hazel-like eyes, when zoomed in closely, look like faraway galaxies taken by NASA's Hubble and James Webb. Journal. Why am I writing in my journal again? I already wrote down my anecdote and thoughts for the day. What kind of thoughts? Contemplating what to write for a poem. An imagination of a psychedelic odyssey, like scenes coming out of a hippie rock musical. But in reality, I'm not high on the ecstasy of psychedelics, just playing around with my imagination and reality. I have a vision standing in a field of tall grass as the wind blows. That's it.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Tony Santana. I saw him here just to say a little bit of something before I go on, because he came all the way from San Jose, Negros Island, no, San Jose, California. I thought San Jose. Okay. Tony, another professor who was a student of mine. I have a lot of professors.
Good evening. It's not a poem, but it's more of an ode to his book. What you have in your hands is a masterpiece waiting to be read. A collection of Oscar Peñaranda's writings that resemble a dining room table filled with colorful and delicious Filipino food waiting to be eaten. The vibrant colors of the food mirroring the richness of each intricate story. The poignant smell of the food invoking vivid memories of the people he has come across and lived life with. I still remember being an 18-year-old kid figuring out who I was as a Filipino American. I was lost and searching for that something that was always inside of me. I was that scared yet hungry activist yearning to reclaim my culture and heritage. I was a first-year college student and Oscar Peñaranda was my professor. It was my first in-depth conversation, kwentuhan, trying to connect to my activism with activism of the past. I asked who the Katipunans were, and he gladly shared the history of the Filipino revolutionaries that fought bravely against Spain and ultimately won. It was in that kwentuhan that I knew who I was in the timeline of our stories, that the lineage of the KKK, the Katipunans, ran through the veins and bloodline of Oscar Peñaranda and hesitantly myself. That kwentuhan changed it all for me. Oscar Peñaranda is a living legend in our community. His life mirrors indicative moments in Filipino-American history. He had a hand in some way or another in the development and the creation of self-journeys within that tell our stories. We can always trace back the lineage of impactful moments of the Filipino community to Oscar Peñaranda somehow, by happenstance or by spiritual convergence. He was always there at the right moment in time to push our community and be reminded of the beauty our community possessed. Every time I bring his name up in conversations, the utmost respect and smiling faces have nothing but great things being said. From students learning Tagalog teachers revisiting the idea of racism and social justice, artists creating new words, friends playing poker and shooting the shit, family members, salatoks, and other people he has encountered along the way have been impacted by his person. God has given him a gift of being a human that affects lives and changes the world we want to live in. So before you pick up this book, sit in a dimly lit living room with a cup of tea in your hand, listening to jazz softly playing in the background. Imagine Oscar Peñaranda sitting next to you, anticipating a story being told. Pick up the book, and as you turn the pages, stop at an intriguing title and immerse yourself into that one specific story. Put the book down, take a sip of your tea, and ponder what you have just read. Sit there, pausing and reflecting until you're ready to read another story. Then repeat over and over again. Oscar Peñaranda's Follower of the Seasons is not meant to be read in one sitting. It's meant to be read in varied times and spaces of comfort. So let's begin.
Well, I was a little nervous there when he was describing when to read it with a cup of coffee, music. I thought he was gonna say smoke a joint or something. I was waiting. Let me get my my pen. All right, I'm gonna thank you all for coming. Wow, some people are standing there, and there's some food over here, you guys, if you haven't eaten that. And I'm gonna start. I'll start at the very beginning of the book, the first page, because you know the book is written in 5 parts. I call it suites. You could call it in anything, but it's like a symphony to me. You know, there's a poem. Since I write in poetry and I write in essays, I write in prose, I write in stories. When I put it together, it's like a symphony. It comes in and out, and you'll probably know the feel of it if I get a sample of it. So I'll start with the first one, Suite 1, the bridge. When people look at the Golden Gate Bridge, they do not see what I see. I see Bayani and Ellie jumping to their deaths, a lover's pact, uncle and niece. Witnesses said they kissed, held hands, and jumped together. I see Rod's mother, who did the same thing 3 decades earlier. Her epileptic fits were getting worse and worse. I see the first person who crossed that bridge. It was not the white banker who financed it, as it is reportedly known, but a Filipino, his driver, who test drove it before he crossed the bridge. I interviewed the guy's niece. Yeah, I interviewed the guy's niece, Vallejo. It's not too far from here. I see Pancho Villa, no, not Pancho Villa, Mexican, Pancho Villa, born Francisco Guilledo, first Filipino boxing champion. Wala pa si Manny Pacquiao, is nothing compared to Pancho Villa, according to my uncle. First Filipino boxing champion of the world. I saw him with Miss San Francisco of a 1925 photo op from a newspaper with the bridge looming large in the background. That bridge tells me of the Presidio, where thousands and thousands of US troops were housed, embarked from Embarcadero to go to the Philippines and kill Filipinos and squelch the first fledgling republic of that long-standing history of Asia, the Philippines. And there are 2 poems will follow. One is called Bayani's Tune. Bayani's Tune. Your guitar leaning on someone's porch fence, bathed by the rain that slowly melted your dreams away from clenched fists, clutching on, chanting, remembering. The dream more painful is the one left unpursued, and no song is better than 1,000 bad ones. And I have a friend who passed away since, who roamed the streets here, Presco Tabios, another poet and writer. And he wrote something on the bridge that I had to include here. So this is the only piece of writing that is not mine. This is Presco Tabios, and I want to give credit to him. We'll park over to the other side. If we change our minds, there'll be no toll. Bloodlines run like chords on a guitar. Me, the daughter of your brother. You in the palm of my hands. The cable on this bridge will make music. Here, uncle, lend me your wing over this rail. Heavy. Okay. I wrote, when it's like this, I change, I sort of, I have something planned, or my colleagues have something planned, but it changes as, like I'm going to change it now. Now, I noticed that since I told you I write essays and stories, but when I read essays, if I read essays, it's not that interesting, So because essays, when I read it here, I have to do this, look up to my stories, and poems, I can sort of look down all the time and you can get into it. But with essays, it gets kind of stale, not stale, but I don't know, doesn't have any, something like that, so I had to sort of tell story of what I say. So this next one that I'm saying is it's called Passengers of the Wind. This is, I'm not going to read this stuff. I'm going to tell you about it. And like Peter was saying, this land was occupied by the Native Americans. And that story, Passengers of the Wind, was the first story. The stories that the first Filipinos who came here in the 1500s, 1800s, the Manila galleon trade, they were passengers of the wind, because although they were under the employ of the Spanish government, it was really the Filipinos' lumber who made those galleons. It was the Filipino know-how who navigated it around the world. So it's really the Filipinos who made the first world trade run. The first group, and I did that here because I wanted to show that in that experience, the Manila galleon trade, the first Filipinos came here. That's why we have Filipino-American History Month in October, because October 18, 1587, they were recorded here by Pedro Inamuno's voyage. And after that, I talked about, in this book here, the Philippine-American War. Now, you see that galleon trade was the relationship between the Philippines and Spain. Filipino-American War, the relationship between the US and the Philippines. The Philippines and the US relationship started ignominiously, started bad. The worst that you can start with, a war. They started a war, yeah? And it was a bloody war. So please, if you don't know anything about that war, the point of that paper is that you really cannot discuss too much about Filipinos and US and that relationship unless you study the Philippine-American War, which is hidden by many intentional machinations. So I wrote about that here also. And then just a minute, okay? I'm going to well, oh yeah, I have it in different places. Here. I had it in the money, the money thing. Nothing to do with it. Yeah. Yeah. Eto. Page 125. See, I had something here. And I'm going to change glasses because, no, I see. Because I bought it. What the hell? I'm not sure use it. Sure. Yeah, 125. Now the other, it's called followers of the seasons because there are many followers here. There's follower of the season, singular. That was the writer, probably the narrator, which was me in my memoir. But the followers of the seasons were the people that really I associated with and who really helped me find my voice. These are the workers, the workers in the farms and the workers of Alaska. And we work in Alaska, the salmon, and the salmon itself is a follower of the seasons. Well, we follow the salmon, they go upstairs, they give birth and then they die. No? So they follow a certain patterns too. Okay. Alasqueros were the Filipino workers in Alaska doing seasonal jobs, mostly salmon run in the summers. There were crab and halibut too, but their seasons are after the summer. There were a few Filipino workers who work with canneries as well. Alasqueros were not natives of Alaska originally. They came all over from the West Coast and some farther, like Elmo, the ex-hitman of Al Capone, who was from Chicago, but some would eventually take up residence there, like James Bond, who they say was in Alaska 11 months. That's not his real name, James Bond. Eli Valdez. But in Alaska, everybody's got a different name, right? James Bond, Eli Valdez, Ilocano guy, nice guy. Yeah, good singer too. Okay. But working up to about 11 months of the year, Alasqueros were not locals, but working seasonal visitors. The same companies that employed them employed the farm workers who put fruits as well as fish in a can. For Filipinos, the same workers that worked the fields of the West Coast worked the fish canneries in Alaska. Some foremen for picking fruits and vegetables picked their choice workers to go to Alaska. All the gold in the years of the California gold rush does not equal 1 year of agribusiness profits. That's how big money it is in agribusiness. 4 months before the now famous grape strike in Delano, union folks led by Larry Itliong were able to negotiate in Coachella a contract in May of 1965. Remember, the Delano strike was September 8, 1965. There were successful months before that. Agribusiness, what's that? The neighboring Delano farmers knew that Itliong and the farm workers were coming to their town next and would demand negotiations from the farmers and the owners. Agribusiness reared its ugly head, and on September 8, 1965, Larry Itliong and about 1,500 Filipino laborers in the farmlands around Delano started day one of a strike and boycott of grapes that would last several more years. That was the beginning of the great strike. Many people heard that. Now, the year after I graduated from St. Ignatius High School, and I have to mention that because Jesuits, they'll hunt you down. But you're, I think, let me look at my license, 61 or 2, I think, 61 or 2. Yeah. The year after I graduated from St. Ignatius High School in the early 60s, I worked 2 summers in Las Vegas. To my surprise, there were already plenty of Filipinos in Las Vegas. In San Francisco, the social worker on Potrero Street was telling us fresh young graduates that Las Vegas was hiring workers left and right. I talked to him about this, and the next week, I was on a Greyhound bus to Sin City. That was who called. 2 went with me. The next day, 3 more followed. So 5 of us went to Vegas, First night in Vegas, we slept in the announcing booth of the racetracks in the middle of the town. There was a racetrack in the middle of the town in Vegas at the time. A million stars, we slept in a million stars shone brightly above our partial roof, and the night air was tinged with horse manure. The landmark apartments had just been built, and we wanted a room there for the next day. 5 of us, 2 shifts. 3 worked in the morning shift, 7 a.m. to 3. 2 in the graveyard, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. The connection that the San Francisco social worker gave us was a Mr. Yamat in the Riviera Hotel. He was a Kapampangan, and almost all his colleagues were also Kapampangan, like Gil and Rolando Santos. There, I met some other Kapampangans from California who were talking about a strike that had just happened in Coachella and the upcoming expected strike in their own town of Delano. I sent all my paychecks to my mother in San Francisco. I lived purely on my tips, some of which were still in silver dollars. minted in the 1880s, just like the Old West I've been reading about. There were so many, they were coming out of my ears. Now I do not even have a single coin. I don't know where they went. Okay. Here's a poem about the Alasqueros, the workers, the workers, the farm workers and the Alasqueros. They're called migrant workers. The migrant workers because they travel seasons, they follow the seasons, so they follow. And this is called the migrant roll call. When you're a migrant, they don't really have a roll call. They don't even know your name. But this one, this one has a name. So this poem. Manong Blackie from Stockton, Lomboy of Portland, Oregon. Mr. Lomboy to you, son. And Three-Fingered Larry of Delano Town. Were there three fingers left or were the three fingers gone? My Aunt Emma from Seattle, Alasquera extraordinaire. They are not in the pages of history books, yet they made history. Like the very grapes they harvested, bent in the summer, bent in the burning heat, sun up to sundown. They put fruits on your table, yet they themselves could not afford the fruits of their own labor. They raised their fists and laid them down again to pave the paths of justice for our future. Boy, sige, sige. Freddie Eagle. Yeah, when I say Freddie Eagle, that's not his name. Freddie Eagle. Name is Freddie Iglesia, Alfredo Iglesia. The eagle, I-G-L-E, he cut it and he made it like an eagle. Looks, he was a tough guy. He was a tough guy who was afraid of ghosts at night. I didn't know. Yeah, I saw him in the midnight. The guy ran away. Okay, but he was a tough guy. He was a killer. Boy, sige, sige, Freddie Eagle, Slim Gator. His picture is in the cover here. And the Wolfman from fair Santa Clara, not too far from here, an ex-Al Capone hitman who wore panties to work. The secret to long hours of work, he told me. More comfort, more support, he said. Who am I to argue? Like, that guy's a killer. I ain't arguing with him. Who stayed at the same housing that my parents lived in, south of Market, Clementina Street, Soma, Central City, in St. Patrick's Church, across. No read, no write, but work like hell, drink like hell, and gamble like there was no tomorrow. And for some, there was no tomorrow. They died with their Alaskan cannery boots on. For my parents and aunties and uncles and elders who raised me or tried to sacrifice and taught me how to sacrifice for the good of the many, for the good of the loved ones, for the good of the weaker ones, for you, my ancestors from the homeland, for you, my ancestors who have traveled far and away from the homeland and into the loveless fields of the diaspora. I sing these words of praise, and I ask you all now for a brief moment, as their obscure lives were for a brief moment in time, to honor them by remembering, for memory can be a witness to their labors and accomplishments. Their footprints are all over the world, yet they remain unknown. Vera, the native laundry lady from South Naknek village, who had to contend with our sometimes stained underwear, that brown badge of labor. Every Tuesday, laundry day, fancy pants, called the vagina in Filipino. Saan si Puki? Tabacan, the Mexican, loud snoring Eng, the Chinaman, and Mr. Hollywood of San Francisco. Always wore shades, no matter how fishy he looked and smelly, he always had shades, Mr. Hollywood of San Francisco. I hear you all. Together we shall pluck you each by each out of the dustbins of history. And if you listen carefully with a mind that's thirsty for the truth and a heart that's pure, from fields to big cities, lakes, rivers, and bays, from silences and the noise, from the green grass that blow wild in the meadow, if you listen carefully, you may hear the wind whisper their names. Oka of old Frisco town, Manong Oka now, yet still a prince of the island Leyte. All of you laid down your sore and aching dreams at my feet, and these hobbled words will give them wings to set us free. So that was a poem for the migrant worker. Okay. It's a character that I met there. You know, there's memoirs, and then there's stories, there's fiction, and then there's prose, and then pretty soon as you're writing, the memoir blurs into fiction, the fiction blurs into memoir. So I don't know what to call this now. This is so one of the characters and real characters, his name is Rick Williams, but I changed it to Rick Wilson in case he sues me. He sues me. Remember, I don't trust any of these guys. Rick Wilson. So Rick Wilson was a white man from New York. People would go to him and say things about New York City. Hey, how's Broadway, man? Or how's the Brooklyn Bridge or the Statue of Liberty? And he'll say, never seen any of them, man. I'm from upstate New York. New York is a state too, brother. I'm from Troy, New York. And he would smile. Troy, he told me, was near Albany, the capital city of New York State. Rick Wilson was into the drama, the moment, the ridiculousness of existence. He visited me once when he passed by San Francisco before he took the trip back home to New York, Troy, New York. He was somewhat apprehensive. He was to meet his parents, and his adopted parents, that is, after being gone from them for about 10 years. He stayed with me in San Francisco for several days. Then he moved on to New York. He took the plane. He left me his MG Roadster. A Triumph it was, convertible, sporty, but beat up. He told me that if he does not come back in 3 weeks, it's yours. And he left me the keys. What the hell? It was the early 70s, and the people were into existentialism and Sartre and Camus. He came back before the 3 weeks was up, though. One of the most memorable incidents, and there were many more than a few, with Rick the Stick. That's what I called him, Rick the Stick. He's one of these guys. Rick is one of these guys who got a lot of confidence. You know, he was the shittiest pool player you'll ever see. And he would challenge you. You want to take my money? Oh, even I can beat him. I wasn't that good. So, so here's but he had a way of, you know, I was younger than him. I was a rookie at the time. I was young. So I really didn't argue with a lot of folks. And he was an aggressive, very confident guy. So one of the most memorable incidents, and there were more than a few, with Rick the Stick was the very first time I met him in Kodiak, and how we lost over $6,000 in about half an hour. Men on the boardwalk were playing dice. Rick is the kind that always wants to get involved, participate. I remember in the nightclubs of Kodiak that we occasionally visited, he would always call out to the older, over-the-hill entertainers, straining his neck. You're the one for me, baby. Where have you been all my life? I'd like to kiss your belly button from the inside out. You drive me to a frenzy of unspeakable desire. Strangely enough, this guy, Rick Wilson, was a gentleman. There was a gentleman about him, and his attitude towards women especially. In fact, he was the one that was always being taken for a ride by the women that he knew. Right? Maybe it was because he was one white man who was close enough, who was a close, though brief friend of mine, and one of the very few whom I ended up trusting. Maybe it was because we lost about $6,000 in a crapshoot. We had 200 each. That's how we started. I had $200. And he said, you know, he didn't ask me, you want to gamble? He just said, give me the 200, man. I'm gonna make 1,000. What was that? Oh yeah. But the amazing thing about Rick Wilson was that he would forgive in an instant. People would do him wrong, he'd forgive all the time. It was something that I had a hard time doing. You know, I still do, forgiving people who messes with you. I like revenge, but no good. Don't do that, okay? That's no good, man. Yeah. And he would forgive repeatedly, Rick Wilson. He was one white man who was a close, though brief friend of mine, and one of the very few whom I ended up trusting. Maybe it was because we lost at $6,000. We had $200 each, and we, of course, it was actually only he, had challenged everybody into our money with a quick dice shoot. We got $400 right here, gentlemen. Yours for the taking. What do you say? Let's shoot some dice? And right then and there, on the docks and the waterfront boardwalks, creaking with the sway of the sea, he took off his jacket and started rolling the dice. Give me a 200, man. And he quickly, confidently stretched his hand out to me. What could I do? The fishermen were in town, fresh from cashing in on their catch. Everybody had big bucks, and the money was loose like a long-necked goose, like Rick the Sticks, who would like to quote the big bopper of the late 50s. Here it is, I would give it to him. I gave it to him. Here it is, Rick. Go get him. And Rick was hot that afternoon. His left hand was burning. In about 3 passes, 3 winnings, we had close to $1,000. After that, I started to lose count, and it didn't matter anymore because Rick was just throwing one pass after another, one winner after another, every time, and no sevens were coming out. Surprisingly, we were looking at over $2,000 in front of us, and we, that is Rick, had thrown 8 passes in a row. That's hard to throw dice. So 8, no sevens came out. I think I'm good for another one, he said. What do you say, partner? He would turn to me, confident and ebullient. What can I say? Let it roll, fuck it. That's what I said. And he rolled and rolled until he got his number again. Rick the Stick asked the pit boss, Long Arm Charlie. This guy, Long Arm Charlie, he's only got 1 arm. I don't know why they call him Long Arm. It was short. The other one was no arm, you know. But you can't argue with. For the pit boss Charlie was only too glad to accommodate anything to stop the flow of luck that had bitten this young white man with a lot of gray hair. Hopefully this will stop the rhythm and change the luck. Long Arm Charlie asked his boys to count the money. We had $6,420 in front of us. I feel 10 is my number, he said. We'll let it roll one more time, he told me. And the number 10 showed up at this point. You see, it means something. This is the 10th roll, he told me. The number is 10. We're going to get it. And he let it roll. But he 7'd out. He lost. Right? And we watched them rake in all the money that was ours just seconds ago. I wanted to stop at 9 passes. I wanted to tell him so, but I couldn't. I didn't want to spoil a quality of experience that he really strove for, to live for. So we lost all our money that night. It was really only $200 that we lost. What's $200? But what do you think it all means, Stick? I asked him. I was forced to ask him. I mean, we had everything and then nothing. Gold already, and it somehow turned into shit. Why me? Why us, Rick? What is it, Rick? What's it all mean? Rick the Stick would give that sudden laugh that abruptly stopped, his eyes widening a bit. But with pleasure, his hawked nose would twitch a bit, and the gray streaks on his young head would catch your attention. What's it all mean? Fuck if I know, he said. Rick would say and laugh at the same time. At least, he said, we had something to lose, huh? Think of all the fuckers in the world who have nothing to lose, he said. Kid, we're lucky for having had so much to lose, even for only a moment. Our whole lives are only for a moment anyways. He got philosophical. Right? He would burst into uncontrollable laughter. Well, you can't win them all, he said. I told him he reminded me of my uncle, the boxer, who fought 119 fights and lost 119. And when I asked him why and how, all he said was, you can't win them all, son. Yes, $200, $6,000, what's the difference? I have squandered more pettier things and much more in counterproductive kalokohans. So that's that. Today, walking down Kearney Street to Market Street, I take the train to the East Bay to see my granddaughter. In the winter, when it is bright, at high noon in December, the sun is in your face, but soft. You don't want to get away from it. You just don't want to be blinded crossing the street through trees of memory. For a swift moment, a flash, I felt I was my Uncle Angel inside his body. I don't know why, perhaps from the stories he told me, from the stories he told us from his gallivanting days on this street, Kearney, during his young manhood. But I suddenly felt I was in his body, my mother's youngest sibling, who used to tell me when he stayed with us on 27th Avenue during one or two of his leaves in the Navy before he got kicked out of the Army for being AWOL in the Philippines because the Army could not give him permission to visit his dying mother for a few days while he was stationed in Korea, and who danced and fought and talked stories on the streets of Kearney in his heyday. I felt like Uncle Angel from the inside for the first time, totally and physically, but only for a moment. Because if anyone was named wrongly, it would have been him. Though lovable with a kind heart, an angel he was not. R.I.P. Angel, he said that. He said that the dent in my stomach, I have a little dent here in my stomach. Very little. He said that the dent in my stomach was there because he, gambler that he was, in a dream had pointed out a number 8 in his memory, and his sharp guitar finger, he played guitar, good guitar player, Uncle Angel, hit my mother's stomach while I was inside the stomach. And that's how he explained to me, that's why you have the little dent here. I was number 8, he said. That's not bad. And when my Uncle Angel came to live with us, he brought the music with him. He played the guitar, and every day he was with us. My mother was the eldest, and he the youngest sibling. The air was filled with music. He didn't just play, he sang. He didn't just sing, he danced. And he told stories too, like the one when he got shot in Korea, the war he was on leave from. And now the bullet was still lodged in his palm. And once in a while, like a muscle, he would move the thing up and down his palm. Then he'd ask us kids to touch it, but only I would volunteer. I was curious. I moved it around like a pebble in a pillow or in someone's pocket. And when he left to return to war, only my mother sang. And the music, though wounded, was kept alive. But it was Tio Angel who helped me enjoy music and everything associated with it. But most of all, the music itself. One day, at the age of 89, the angels took Tio Angel away. He died in a Las Vegas facility. His name was more a wish than a statement of reality from his parents. Naughtiness and mischievousness seemed to have latched onto him like the smile on his face. His father, a Spaniard, they said, named him wishful thinking, perhaps on a parent's part. The townspeople said the father was a very sentimental man, and that was his way of saying that was his baby, his last born. The last picture I saw of my uncle was just months ago at the latest town fiesta, at the latest town fiesta event that we celebrate every year. He was dancing up a storm with his Barong Tagalog. Last time I saw him was when I visited him at the Las Vegas facility before I left for the Philippines for an event I needed to attend, though I was one day late. He whispered, asking me, Oscar, collect $200 from that Auntie Luella of yours. She owes me money. I had wanted to see and check the money, and I wanted to see the bullet in his palm. But when I got there and saw him dying, I forgot all about it. The times when Tio Angel walked on Kearney Street was a time when Filipino businesses were just opening up around Central City, Soma, and were eagerly supported by the community. I remember Mrs. Rapisura, my mother's friend, one of the original Filipino store owners in San Francisco, climbing up our stairs Mr. Rapistora, the man, he stayed in the truck. The wife put the heavy 100-pound bag of rice over her shoulder and ran up the stairs. The woman and the husband listening to the radio on the truck. Somebody down I talked to him before. No, somebody might steal the truck. I gotta be here. Okay. My mother, with the gold, they themselves delivered in person. Another one, the Evangelista store, was started to do good as well. Dr. Borja held his clinic at the Delta Hotel, where lots of kababayans went, including my father and once or twice myself as a teenager. After retiring, my father and mother would live in this area on Clementina Street until they died in the last 20 years of their lives in one of their first senior housing programs of the city. We are all children of our times and elders of another. Truly, the child is father to the man and the mother to the woman. Okay. I was gonna, let me read this thing here that I was supposed to, oh yeah, okay. You know, I mentioned boxing before, you know, Pacquiao and all this stuff. I didn't mean, but there's something here again about boxing, which is kind of a, it's called Golden Boy. Golden Boy is when a boxer is has artistic interests, you know, a musician or something, and they've got to preserve that thing. So this, you know, this is no good, man. It's better, man. Yeah. It's better. After their 50 years reunion at the beach chalet, Frank Naraha greeted Freddie Madayag with a couple of body punches. Hello, pare. You know, those guys. These guys, they're about 70 already. They think they can still move, you know. Couple of body punches and a left hook. Golden gloves, putang ina, golden gloves, man, said Frank as he fake pummeled Freddie with a barrage of combination punches. I did not know till then that he, Freddie, was a Golden Glove boxer. He played bass for the Wanderers and did background vocals. That's how everybody knew Freddie. High-pitched voice pa siya. Looked like a gangster, but his high-pitched voice always caught people off guard. Hey, Oscar, what are you doing? That's the way it is, but he looked like a thug, man. Fred, and a nice guy, huh? And tall like me. Huh? Tall, he was tall. Yeah. He played bass and did background. That's how everyone knew Freddie. High-pitched voice, looked like a gangster, but his high-pitched voice always caught people off guard. The way he caught me off guard 50 years ago on that nothing to do afternoon in the avenues, which were the flatlands of San Francisco. And because Freddie was my height, Carl and Pat, the other two friends, who during our teenage years once pitted us together for a boxing match down in Carl's room in the basement that his father built. I thought it was pretty good. I thought I was a pretty good boxer. And we started feeling each other out, boxing, jabbing, a combination here and there. Then somewhere in the second or third minute, I pissed him off somehow. Until now, I don't know why. He started to swing with solid and accurate punches all of a sudden. Wow. I hardly had time to cover up when he started pounding again. Then I realized, man, this guy's pounding the shit out of me. Did I say something? It was not like that in the beginning. I was wondering, or was the time for feeling out over and now time to box? Or did I hit him in a sensitive spot that he started wailing on me nonstop? After a while, Carl and Pat, our two friends, asked me if we should go another round. I wanted to stop, of course, but I couldn't say that, right? I shook it off. Whatever, I said, pretending like maybe he wants to quit, right? Up to him, I said. Okay, then, one more round, I said. Said the boys. Yeah, okay with them. It wasn't them getting pounded. Then he really unleashed on me. Everywhere I turned, his punches found me. I could not even open up for a peek. I backed up into Carl's father's vice grip that was clamped on the work table. It rang hard, metal. Okay, that's enough, I heard someone raise his voice. Needless to say, I was relieved. But it took me 50 years to realize that Freddie Madayag, bass player and vocalist in The Wanderers, was a Golden Glove champion. That's when I remembered seeing a picture of Pancho Villa, the first world champion Filipino, with some US promoters, and it looked like he was carrying a violin case. He was a golden boy too. Dancer, boxing, music with Filipinos. They're all one. Okay, I'll read something about set in the Philippines because I haven't done that yet. I left the Philippines when I was 12, went to Canada. I stayed there till in Vancouver till I was 17, then came to San Francisco when I was 17. So between 12 and 15, which is really a formative years of someone's life, it was in Canada. So a lot of firsts in Canada, even though Canada is really not known for any first, right? But for me, it was a lot of firsts. First time I fell in love with literature, with a written word. Okay, this one is called Manila Goodbye. Very short, short fiction, sudden fiction, very short. Things were just beginning. He had to go back home, put on some decent clothes and see about Lenore. This particular Sunday, he had found out that she was one of the players acting in a play and they were rehearsing. He hung out around his school, Philippine Normal, where on a sidewalk under an acacia tree, he listened and talked to and watched Aling Edad, the Santol lady, peel her globed fruit in one long continuous motion, not a break. He watched the long curly-cued line of peel dangle closer and closer to the ground without ever touching it, all the time telling her stories. She always amazed him. He did not know whether he should count his third-grade teacher, Miss Trinidad, as his first love, but what he remembered clearly was his crush on the sixth-grade classmate, Lenore. Now, so first crush. He remembered 2 or 3 other classmates in Philippine Normal School Elementary who were prettier and initially more attractive, but Lenore, she was like a Christmas card. She had something in her carriage, so lightsome, so confident, yet always conscious of others' needs. She must be an ate, must be someone's older sister, mother, sweetheart, all in one. All the way, and the way she moved, subtle and graceful, especially when the girls were playing that high jump game, luksung tinik. It's like high jump, one girl, well, the girl had to jump, but then when they jump, the skirt flies up. So the boys are always kind of hanging around, They don't play it, they just watch. Well, yeah. Luksung tinik, where part of the unspoken game is showing how graceful one was in jumping high and yet keeping her dress down by placing hovering hands over her billowing skirt. Her face was not a striking beauty, but her skin was cinnamon spotless, and at times she wore her hair in pigtails, and at other times in a ponytail, and yet at others left long and loose. That year would be his last year in the Philippines, though that was not really foremost in his mind. It had some impact on his lax action before leaving the place where he was born and raised, the only place he has ever known in life so far. One day after school, he decided to follow Lenore to her home in Pandacan. From Ermita to Pandacan was not a stone's throw, a couple of jeepney rides for most. Well, follow may not be the right word. Some may say stalk would describe his action more honestly. Lenore jumped the luksung tinik with ease and grace, deftly holding down with both hands her skirt, a flaring in the gust of uplifting air as she cleared the bar of outstretched alternate palms of 2 other playmates facing each other, measured palms, pinky to thumb on top of each other, her feet landing on the ground, skipping lightly, head up, already talking. "Oh, what are you doing here?" she said. "Well, I followed you." "What?" "Yeah, I followed you to church, skipping ditches, stepping around and under stairways. I followed you from church too, to where the jeepney stopped by the terminal, and I've been following you everywhere." He had to tell her it was now or never. "What?" Her pigtails hit her face softly as she turned to him. "Yes, I'm so sorry, Lenore. Now I know the jeepney you take to your home here in Pandacan. Well, I hope you have money to get back home. It's going to get dark soon. The shadows and the soft light of the afternoon filtered through the trees of the avenues they were walking on. Don't worry, I don't pay. I mean, when I was a kid, I never paid the jeepney. I just ride in them when they tell you, where's the money? I just jump out and go to the next one. The money. That's what we all did when we were kids. Yeah. Well, it was, yeah, don't worry, I don't pay. I mean, I get off before paying, not for me. Things are not bad for me. Things will be bright for me for a while. I know you're going to America, huh? Well, yes, but that's not what I mean. When are you going? Well, soon, before we know it. He must tell her. When I saw you coming down the stairs so delicately with your wooden shoes into the mean tight streets of your neighborhood, I knew it was you. And I felt like your home became my neighborhood. Yeah, well, what steps? What buckouts? You wooden shoes, tight streets? What on earth are you talking about? I guess I'm trying to say goodbye, Lenore. I see, and you don't know how. I heard about you going to America before Pa. She came closer and hugged him. He hugged back. Tighter now, she said, like a big sister, and whispered, you will be back. This much I know. He came back all right. She was right. 19 years later, and at least 19 times after that. But he never saw her again. Never saw her. I met some of her friends, though. That was here. Okay. Then I would read one more about there's 2 or 3 characters, very short tribute, and I'll read one. And this one is from about Ed De La Cruz, one of my colleagues, one of my older colleagues. I call it The Awakening. Ed De La Cruz was a couple of years older than I, and he was drunk again, so I had to drive him home, just the 2 of us. He lived at the bottom of Twin Peaks, Haight-Ashbury district. When we were going along Lincoln Avenue by the park, he got violent in the passenger seat and started vandalizing my car while I was driving. So I had to fend him off and at the same time drive the goddamn thing. He was ranting and raving. Oscar, he seemed to be in pain, looking for words profound. You fucking asshole. You are such a waste. Such a waste. God damn it, piece of shit. And tore off my rear view mirror that hung limp above the windshield inside my car for the rest of its natural life. It's still there. I thought that might have been a turning point in my life in many directions, along with community involvement and admitting to oneself the not so pretty truths about one's situation. I was beginning to write. That was good enough for me, but not for Eddie. And some folks, like Ed De La Cruz, they had such strange ways of communicating their golden hopes and vision and frustration. I don't believe we ever mentioned that incident again to each other or to no one else. At least I did not, until now, of course. But I never forgot the day Ed De La Cruz, in a drunken stupor, straightened me out and pointed me to a path in life for which I have never veered since. Drunk or sober, he saw more in me than I did at the time. Kuya Eddie, All City, ex-Marine, City College, Lowell High School, sharpest community mind I ever knew. Mano po. And I wanted to read one more before we, something about San Francisco, the city, because this city is being maligned lately, and all kinds of shit in the video about San Francisco going bots or something. But I have something to say about it. I have it here. Let me see, huh? Oh, here. Yeah, 61. All right. Really? Okay. In our apartment on Guerrero Street, in the 70s, my daughter woke me one time very early in the morning, just before dawn. Dad, she said. What is it? I asked. I had a bad dream. Come and go back to sleep beside me, I said. I'll hear it when we get up, okay? When later when I woke up in the fullness of the morning, I had forgotten all about it, but she had not. Do you want to hear my dream now? Tell me, I said. There were people with guns who took us away, she said. They put us in a car with them and along a deserted road. They stopped and asked us to get out. And there were nuns with guns, and I was confused. And suddenly she stopped. Wait a second, don't you remember that? You were there. All my children were born in San Francisco. Not one of them lives there now. My firstborn does not care much for the city. He now lives in Las Vegas. My first daughter, who was born in the summer of love, also lives in Las Vegas. She's not too crazy about California in general. The crime, she told me, the crime, the cost of living, the politics, you name it. It's true, of course, but it does not portray an accurate San Francisco. And it's not the only city with squalor, and the people sheltered from that squalor in their own cities will have the most fear reading this manufactured cherry-picked malaise. All major cities in the country have similar problems. The viewer's bubbled world sanitizes them and prevents them from seeing, identifying with their own similar problems. I know and have felt the problems of the city since day one. The sources of these negative videos of inner US cities have their agenda of hate and fear and blame. But me, I always liked the place, in spite of it. I just didn't have anybody to tell it to. She's been abused, refused, excused, confused, like others, like I have. Surrounded on three sides by the sea, 7 times 7 square miles of choice real estate spread among diverse neighborhoods spaced around 8 subway stops, among 7 magnificent hills and with 7 bridges in which to enter her. The city that broke my heart twice. Somewhere between Chinatown and Mario's Cafe, and in North Beach and Dolores Park in the Mission. When Montgomery Cliff asked Donna Reed in that movie, From Here to Eternity, why do you keep going back to the army? The army treats you like shit. Why do you keep going back there? Yeah. They demoted you. Montgomery Cliff, the main character, says, well, you know, if you love somebody or something, you don't have to love you back. You're lucky you have someone to love, he said. And he done. I love her wild winds, her curvy up and down streets, her hidden and not so hidden beaches and parks. And no matter how long you've lived in that small, big city, you always run into a street you've never seen before. A city where you put your jacket on, then take it off again about 3 times, walking 10 blocks. And in those 10 blocks, you have traversed the diversity of the globe from all continents. It's a crazy town, but with a spirit that breeds and attracts creativity and originators that oftentimes influence the trends and lifetimes of the times. I've had a lover's quarrel with this city for as long as I can remember. Like memory, like music, like water, it takes only a moment and the lambent light of her December noons for me to make up with her again. Sa mga suliranin na pinaglalabanan, in the chaotic madness of the world, she is a haven sometimes, and I'm back in her arms again, the city that broke my heart twice. And there is a sentimental sunset-like feeling about the place, as if you're far away and at home at the same time. This city is my city, and I'm a part of it as much as she is of me. There is no San Francisco without my people's footprints on it, without Al Robra's words on it, without Bill Soros' dancing footsteps all over it, without my parents' and children's stories on it. That is how I finally came to see the city and how I found my voice. It's a place where memory is important because some things change so quickly. Thanks.